Good afternoon. Welcome to the season premiere of our show. I'm your host, Melissa Ridgen. If you tuned in last season, you'll know that we spent a lot of time and energy on the child welfare system across Canada. We looked at how this often dysfunctional industry has taken children from homes that they didn't need to be taken from, how often that impossible hoops are created for parents by a system that appears to want them to give up so that the kids stay in this care as long as possible. That's where the funding is. And it's often all on very flimsy grounds. It's called the Millennium Scoop, children being taken from Indigenous homes, just like what was done in the residential schools era and in the 60s scoop. So today we are putting the child welfare industry in focus once again. There's lots that has developed since last year. We'll tell you about some of that throughout the show. It's of course a call-in show, and you can always join our conversation. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you weigh in on what we're talking about. You can call us toll-free at 1-877-647-2786 when you have something to add. You can also tweet us at APTN InFocus, and you can post comments on our live feed on APTN News Facebook page. But please, though, keep in mind that it is illegal to identify children currently in care, and that includes identifying yourself in a way that could identify a child in care. So imagine spending 9 months getting excited about having a baby, only to have that baby taken from your arms in the hospital just days after birth. Joining us today is a Brandon Manitoba family who knows that feeling too well. And there's zero timeline as to when they will ever get their son back. InFocus visited them at their home last month. Here's a bit of how they live. Did he ever get to wear this?
No. A lot of things he hasn't been able to wear.
Newborn.
Yeah.
So this whole, you just keep buying the next level of clothes, and then when he's not home, they go into this bag to give away or sell.
Yeah.
Try and find moms and stuff that are needing stuff too. So.
A change table and dresser. There's diapers. We have bunch of books for story time with. Those are size 3 diapers.
Those are pretty little diapers.
Yeah.
Would they fit him now?
Well, these ones will be for sale.
Right away here.
Well, I don't know, or even give away to.
Yeah.
So do you guys just keep buying diapers, hoping he comes home, and then when you realize that's not happening, buy the next size?
We weren't able to use really our stroller at all. Boss's girlfriend actually handmade this for our son.
They never even offered us any ideas if he's ever going to come home.
They dangle him in front of us.
I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry, I'm a mess.
They refused to let us give him the breast milk. And then they turned around and said that because we were giving him breast milk during the visits, that's why he was sick. But last time he had breast milk was April 26th, right before they took him. I had to ask if I could even feed him before they took him.
This case might shock you if you're one of the millions of Canadians who believe that the only children in foster care in this country had to be saved from horrible, abusive, or neglectful homes. This family story actually began 6 years ago before they were a couple. Mom, as we're going to call her because we can't name them as their children are in care, she was in an abusive relationship with another man. Her infant daughter with that man was shaken at some point when she was only 4 months old. Now, authorities couldn't prove who did it, but charged the mom for failing to protect the baby who was taken into care. Mom was advised by her lawyer at the time that if she pleaded guilty to failing to provide the necessities of life, she'd be able to get her daughter back eventually. 6 years later, her daughter remains in the system, and she's not even had contact with her for years. Her abusive ex was given 18 months probation for beating mom, while mom got 3 years probation for failing to protect the little girl. Court documents and a chain of emails obtained by APTN show that authorities are concerned that the battered mom still has chronic hip problems, post-traumatic stress disorder, post-concussion syndrome, and anxiety and depression. That's from being the victim of abuse. And that's why today she can not only not see her 6-year-old daughter, but she cannot possibly parent her infant son with a different man who we're just going to call Dad, as we can't name him because it would identify the kids in care. Joining us now is Mom and Dad.
Hi.
Hey, thank you guys for joining us. As we saw on that video, it's not easy to discuss this, and we thank you guys for taking time to come and share that story. So I want to start with the beginning. Mom, you left that abusive relationship 6 years ago after your daughter was injured. You pleaded guilty to not protecting her. What have you done in the past 6 years to heal physically and emotionally and mentally from that time in your life?
Well, I continue to see a counselor to this day. Through victim services, actually. I have been in physiotherapy. I've even actually had acupuncture on my back as well to help try and relieve the pain and just to try and be able to really do stuff with my family properly the way that anyone should be able to. And this is all stuff that the courts and these agencies are all monitoring to make sure over the course of 6 years, the effects that you sustained from being an abused woman, that you are doing your part to overcome that abuse, and they're watching over your shoulder to make sure that happens, correct? Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward several years after you left that abusive relationship. You met your new partner. How's this relationship?
Absolutely wonderful. The best relationship I could have ever asked for, and it's the kind of relationship anyone should be in.
Oh, she's my better half.
And you, Dad, you have children from other relationships.
Yeah.
What sort of relationship or contact or involvement do you have with those 3 kids?
Well, I have my daughter half the time. She's 9. And one of my other sons that comes and visits me regularly a couple times a year and stays with us. And
he's from out of province.
Yep. And she's a great stepmom to my kids.
So your 2 kids, I said 3, but sorry, 2. So you, Dad, have been helping throughout, I mean, the whole time that you've known Mom, she's been fighting to get her daughter back, her now 6-year-old daughter back. Tell us a little bit about what you guys have worked towards together to get at least visitation resumed with that girl, who I believe is now a permanent ward.
Well.
Yes, she... that's what I keep getting told, is that she's a permanent ward, but I have not received any documentation stating otherwise. In fact, I have documentation actually showing that I still have some sort of custody of my daughter.
She's on your health card still.
Yes, and I'm still receiving mail actually from the government on behalf of my daughter's medical history and records.
When's the last time you got to see her?
Last time I got to hold her was January 8th, 2016. I've seen her around town here and there, looking absolutely happy and healthy.
Since January of 2016, what have you guys been doing with the CFS agency involved to get increased, any access to that girl?
They came, did a house visit to our house for her to come home, so that way she could start getting comfortable being home, and then heard nothing until they took our son.
Okay, so let's just take another look at, just so our viewers can see, this is pretty regular life of 2 people. We want to just take a look at how you guys live and how there's nothing really remarkable about your lives that would, I think most people would look and say, oh, I can see why CFS would be triggered to be harassing these people. These just look like 2 kind of normal people living. Let's take a look.
We have daughter's room. We're in the middle of painting it, but this
Eventually we will have bunk beds.
Yes, we're wanting to get bunk beds in here for when my daughter comes home.
My son has that exact stuffed animal.
Really?
Yeah, he calls it Mr. McGregor.
This is our bathroom. We painted it when we got here.
No, they're super handy to get around town.
Yeah, they don't go that fast, but you don't need to go fast, and half the time we beat people to where we need to go on our scooters anyways. You don't need a license for them, nothing.
You guys have a car though too, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's fast forward again. So spring of 2019, you guys are pregnant. It's been 6 years since your infant was abused by a prior spouse. Did you think you even needed to advise child welfare agencies that you're expecting a baby together?
Well, yeah, I mean, we knew she had previous CFS involvement, so we figured we'd make that call ahead of time, because obviously we're not going to get caught up in that, right? Mm-hmm. And, well, what do you know? Well, we went to them, what, six months ahead of...
Yeah, December 3rd, all of December, I was trying to meet with someone to make a case plan so that way our child, we had no idea we were having a son at the time, but to make sure that our unborn child was not taken from us. And I heard nothing until beginning of April.
Okay, so that was, you reached out in December.
Yeah.
Nothing until April.
Yeah.
So now you're on the brink of your child being born. Like that would be your child was born in May?
April 24th.
April 24th.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so then you suddenly hear from them months after you reached out trying to get this all sorted out. What did they say in the weeks before your son was born?
Nothing really. It started off the meeting that I went to go to with my first lawyer. They said nothing about apprehending him. They just said there's a possibility, we probably won't. Mm-hmm. You know, we will need to go to your house, do an inspection, which they did, which we passed it.
We've passed 2 home inspections now.
Yeah. 2 home inspections by 2 totally different agencies, and my daughter isn't home and our son was taken from me.
They've stated in court under oath that they have no reason for apprehension.
Right. So, and keeping in mind, I think this resounded with me when I heard this. You've got 2 other kids, one child who's out of province but who comes and stays with you, and you've got half care of a daughter. So for Child and Family Services to be saying, well, we have to make sure that this home is safe, kind of strikes me as, well, if you're concerned, why are these kids allowed there? Exactly. That struck me as odd to begin with. Okay, so let's fast forward. They did the home inspections. They said everything seems fine. You, I guess, a couple of weeks later, have your son. Yeah. What happens in the hospital?
Well, it was going good at first. The second... He wasn't even a day old, and the hospital social worker came in, talked to us, and he had even said that there was no order for apprehension of our child, that we shouldn't have to worry that if CFS were to come to the hospital, they would have to go through him. And they didn't. Every time my partner here left the room, the CFS worker would show up.
They came 3 times to the hospital room. I never saw them once. But they came 3 times. Somehow, I was only gone 15 minutes at a time, and somehow they snuck into the room every time to get her alone.
Yeah.
Wow.
We should qualify for people too how they would have known to come, because I think that there's some people who don't understand that what had happened to you guys was a birth alert was put on you. So for those who don't know, a birth alert is when a child welfare agency flags a woman's health card so that when she has her baby anywhere in the province, Child and Family Services is notified to go to the hospital. These birth alerts are hugely controversial. And in fact, the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls and the TRC had said in their final report, actually, that this practice needs to be ended everywhere. It disproportionately flags Indigenous mothers and very often leads to birth apprehensions with very little investigation. Taking a woman's child is something that elders and experts say is the most violent act you can commit against her and can cause devastating effects, as many moms spiral after this happens to them. Just last month, the province of British Columbia was the first to say they're ending birth alerts effective immediately. Children and Family Development Minister Katrine Conroy said her government acknowledges the trauma of these alerts, which disproportionately affect Indigenous women and children. The controversial alerts exist across Canada, wherein child welfare agencies flag a mother as a possible risk to her newborn, often without grounds. The alerts are tied to the mother's health file, and when she gives birth, child welfare workers are notified. It often leads to the apprehension of newborns from hospital. British Columbia's representative for children and youth, Jennifer Charlesworth, expects ending these alerts will have positive effects.
There's no going back, and in terms of the way in which the birth alerts have been used. However, going forward, it's a matter of the system using the array of approaches that they have available to them, or information that they can gather from extended family in order to see what other alternatives might be available to those families. So my hope would be in those removals that have taken place, where birth alert perhaps was a significant factor, my hope would be that they relied on a lot more.
I guess it's a good first step, but they haven't. I talked to Minister Katrine Conroy about what are they going to do with all the kids that they seized on birth alerts who didn't need to be seized. When are they going to return them to the families that they were taken from? British Columbia hasn't figured that out yet. We have a caller, Jane from British Columbia. Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Jane, thanks for calling. Did you have a question or a comment?
Actually, it was a comment. And you are right. They do signal children. I actually am a Native woman. I was adopted through the ministry and then made a ward of court at a very, very young age. I had 5 children, 6 children actually. I lived with one man for 7 years. He's basically the father of my oldest 3, and it was abusive. I left. He left on police escort, and I left. And after 7 years, I had been with another gentleman, and I got pregnant with twins, and I ended up in the hospital on bed rest for the last month because one of the twins had passed away. And when the ministry found out that, because I had my children in respite care while I was in the hospital, and the ministry accused me of neglecting my children and causing the death of my stillborn. And
you neglected babies living in you?
Yeah. I was
how did you cause
causing the death of my stillborn, and they came in and took my children. And then when Kamloops Infant Development investigated, they found out that I wasn't, and I also had an autopsy done on the stillborn, and nothing, I was not proved to have done anything wrong.
What was the cause of death, if you don't mind me asking?
They kept changing their story, but they would not give me back my kids, so they kept saying, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. What they finally settled on was September 20th of 2000, they officially took my kids for good. They adopted out my youngest 2 and took the oldest 3. And basically what they said was, the reasonings was, because I neglected my children, because I lived with an abusive man, and even though I left him and was away from him
7 years previous.
For 7 years, they shipped my oldest 3 kids to go live with him and adopted out my youngest 2.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what happened with your stillborn baby? What was the cause of death?
They don't know. The doctor told me, the autopsy said it was just, they have no idea. None whatsoever. And he explained to me that I was not held responsible for the stillborn, that it was natural thing.
But they still keep your baby.
No medical facts whatsoever why the baby was stillborn. And then the remainder twin, she ended up with, it's a sickness that they get when a sibling like that dies. It's called the inability to thrive syndrome. And because she ended up with certain medical issues, they blamed that on me. And yet Kamloops Infant Development and all medical told the welfare that that has nothing to do with her. That's the symptom. It's actually, there's a name for it.
And Kamloops, the ministry of the Child Welfare Ministry there in Kamloops is one that I'm quite familiar with, because I don't know, maybe many of our viewers might have been caught up this summer on, APTN's been covering the story of baby H, who was taken on a birth alert from a Kamloops hospital when hospital staff had called to report that a mother who had just undergone a C-section, 90 minutes later, when she was recovering from the C-section, they reported that she was neglecting her child. So, of course, Kamloops social workers swoop in and take that baby. Okay, so we are going to need to take a quick break. But when we come back, we still have Mom and Dad here. We're going to get back into their story. What happened when authorities came to the hospital? And what happens if you call out child welfare workers for how they operate? This is interesting. Stay with us.
Join our conversation now. Call in toll-free at 1-877-647-2786. Like us on Facebook on our APTN News page. Follow or tweet us at APTN InFocus, or send your thoughts to infocus@aptn.ca.
Welcome back. Today we are discussing CFS, child apprehension and birth alerts. Let's go to social media now with our social media editor, Jesse Andrushko, to hear some of what you are saying about today's topic.
Thanks, Melissa. We had a lot of feedback online about today's topic. On Facebook, Rachel said, "This is breaking my heart. What CFS is doing is no different than what happened with the 60 scoop and Indigenous babies being commodities." From Mary, "Our parents have to start gathering stories and file a lawsuit." John said, "Big money Native childcare, modern day res school, move shame on Canada." Peter said, "No fairness at the end, no justice." From Laquette, "About time that this is being brought to the public's attention. This has been going on for far too long. It's time we abolish the system and let the people take care of our own." Lastly, from Katie, "Aboriginal CFS placing our Aboriginal children not in Aboriginal homes. This has to stop." If you would like to add your opinion to our topic of conversation, here's how.
Join our conversation now. Call in toll-free at 1-877-647-2786. Like us on Facebook on our APTN News page. Follow or tweet us at APTN InFocus, or send your thoughts to infocus@aptn.ca.
To bring you up to speed with what we're talking about today, a couple who found themselves in the crosshairs of child welfare officials in Brandon, Manitoba on what's known as a birth alert. We should qualify too that this is not a non-Indigenous CFS agency. This is Michif Child and Family Services, so it's a Métis CFS agency. Mom had lost her older child to authorities 6 years ago because she didn't escape a violent relationship before her infant was hurt. In Manitoba, that's enough reason for her to lose that child and every subsequent child she will ever have. She remains in counseling to deal with the abuse that she was sustained. She's found new love with a new partner who joins her here today. They had a baby last spring, and regardless of Dad raising his 2 other children without concern, CFS showed up at the hospital right after their son was born. What happened?
Well, they still haven't told me any specific reason why, actually.
They took him though.
Yep.
What did they say when they so they showed up a few times, and the time that they showed up to take him, what do they say to you? How do they explain to you what they're doing?
Well, to me, all they've said is it's classified. They've taken my son based on an assault by somebody else, and they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to speak to me because they can't legally take my kid. So they just don't want to talk to me.
But they did legally take your kid.
They sure did.
This has gone to court. Judges have said, yep, this is fine. Keep the baby in care. Like, it's legal.
It shouldn't be, because we have done nothing wrong. We have everything that we need at home. Always have, and we always will. We just want our children home.
Okay, so just a reminder for our viewers at home, Mom and Dad are in silhouette here because the children are in care. We can't identify Mom and Dad as it could identify their children. So I want to go then to, so Dad has been in these, I've got piles of court, this is just highlights of what is in their file. This is just like notes for myself. But throughout there, it seems that part of the problem is that Dad in particular is unwelcoming to these caseworkers who show up, and he's, because he doesn't want to play ball with them. They've made several notes about him being hostile and uncooperative. So, but on what grounds did they take a newborn baby from his breastfeeding mom? So if they don't know, let's go to the court documents, which we have. And it shows that the caseworker in this felt that, quote, due to the resistance of the parents to cooperate in the process, I was of the view that it was reasonable and probable that the baby was a child at risk of serious harm. This is from an investigation that she did of the couple? No. She's basing all of this on, and this is according, again, to the court documents that show that she was basing this opinion solely on the old abuse 6 years ago by a different man involving a different child, and that this comes from a different agency. Let's look again. Quote, because of the information that we had received in the intake module, after consulting with my supervisor, we both agreed that if the baby was to be returned home, he would have been at serious risk of harm.
Never.
Based on no investigation, just 6-year-old information. So we at APTN InFocus went to get answers from that caseworker and the supervisor that she was talking about in these court documents. We'll get to that later in the show. What serious harm would your son face if you had him?
Nothing.
Absolutely none. Right now, he's definitely in harm's way. They've done nothing but abuse him.
They've
starved him, neglected him. He's been alienated from all of his family members, his brothers, his sister.
Well, and I know from the email chain they're saying, oh, brother and sister can come and visit him as well.
Oh, I will not bring my children to that child trafficking facility.
Right. Yeah. Now, and speaking of child traffickers, you, Dad, have been pretty explicit. I have the email trail of you they say, oh, well, they dangled visitation in front of you. You guys can come and see your child between this hour and this hour. And Dad, your response is typically hostile, I guess. They're right to say that you're hostile. You're outspoken about how this industry works.
I'm not sure if hostile is the correct word there. I mean, I'm not under investigation for anything. I'm not guilty of anything. I'm not accused of anything. Mm-hmm. They've stolen my son based on an assault by somebody else, and they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds completely illegal. And since they're getting paid for him, mm-hmm. well, you can't give me a reason why you stole him, but you're getting paid for him. That's literally the definition of child trafficking. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when you point this out,
they don't like it.
They certainly don't have the emails, and these caseworkers are pearl clutching, like, how dare you? Oh my gosh, child traffickers, you can't talk to us like that.
Exactly, and I'm a problem now because I'm aggressive and volatile, right? So they've canceled all visitation until I can learn to cooperate. Now, if I'm not guilty of anything or accused of anything or under suspicion of anything, I'm not sure why I'm in supervised scheduled visitation to see my son, mm-hmm. or why my kids need to see each other this way, or why I can't be at work more to pay my bills, or why my landlord looks at me funny when I'm like, I'll give you a few more bucks later, you know? Mm-hmm. I still make it happen, but it's not easy, and I can't explain to anyone why I'm in this situation because they won't tell me.
Let's just take a look at a couple of highlights. You guys have posted some of this, some of your ordeal on Facebook about some of the problems that you have with Michif CFS. Let's take a look. No one but a receptionist was in that day. She directed us to contact a communications person who emailed us a statement from the Michif CFS Authority, which oversees Michif CFS. It says, quote, our Michif CFS system prides itself on the work we do, not only to preserve families wherever possible, but to help families to strengthen by supporting them to build capacity and skills. It goes on to say if you don't like how they conduct themselves, take it up with the Children's Advocate or the Ombudsman. Okay, so that was not what we were looking for the videos, but that was, I had said previously that we went to Michif CFS looking specifically for the caseworker and her supervisor who are in charge of this. They weren't there. So where are things at now, Mom and Dad? You guys, they're saying that you guys can have visitation. They send you notes.
Well, we're allowed visitation as long as I cooperate, which means I have to stop asking questions and be quiet. But no one wants to explain to me why I'm in supervised visitation in the first place, or why there's, why is this woman sitting in the room with me with my kid? Why can't I leave here with my kid? Nobody wants to give me that answer. Well, after 3 months or so, I was rather polite to them for quite some time, and it's wearing thin. Okay, 3 months in, and nobody wants to give me any answers. I'm losing patience here,
I want to take a look at, we have some of the emails that you guys have gone back and forth with, and I want to share this with our audience, because I think it's important to see the tone and the language that these people use in dealing with parents who, like you said, have done nothing wrong. This is an email from Dad to the caseworker. I'm not a criminal. I've done nothing wrong. You've stolen my son, which is completely illegal. Return my son and make arrangements for visitation to resume with Mom's daughter. That's what you're supposed to do. The email after email there's just an admonishment that this is your fault, that this is from your caseworker. Quote, "You are allowed to ask questions, and we have given you both opportunities to meet with us outside of visit times for you to address your concerns or have your questions answered. Our office is a respectful place, and we ask that when you're here, you be respectful." So certainly don't question what they've done to your family. Another quote, "It has been challenging for you to separate your time with your son and your frustrations with the agency. When you're upset with the agency, it's been difficult to communicate it in ways that are respectful. And please let us know how we can support you so that when you start visits again, we can help you make them the best that they can be." So when you guys get these emails all the time, when you read them, these words, this tone, how do you feel?
It makes me sick because it just, they can't be doing this. It makes me angry because along with some of these emails, they send pictures, basically ransom
It feels like
photos.
blackmail or ransom photos. It really does.
The one photo even had him eating chicken and carrots, I believe, with a bib that
telling us what he's going to be for Halloween this year. Like, why am I not getting those moments? Why?
We have a caller. Tiffany, are you there? Tiffany, are you there on the line? We got Tiffany coming here. Hey, Tiffany.
Hi.
Tiffany, you have a question or a comment?
I do. I just want to say first to Mom and Dad, I understand. I know what you are going through. Myself, my husband, we went through something similar, not quite as our son was apprehended by CFS as well when he was 5 months old. My advice for you as a family is to document everything.
Oh,
Go
definitely.
into these. What they are doing with their emails is they are trying to get you agitated. They are trying to get you to become argumentative, to become defensive, to become angry.
Absolutely.
Do not allow that to occur. My other word of advice is do not communicate to them verbally unless you are recording it and unless you have somebody else present. Dad, again, if you guys go to these visits, go to them. Do not communicate with the worker at all. Focus on your child and focus on the time there. I know it is difficult. I understand. I have been there. But you need to do this for them, because the more that you do not associate yourself with their tactics, the more angry they will become and the more that they will know that they are not getting to you. Going back to when they apprehended when they went to corner your wife or your common law partner in the hospital, they did the same thing for me. When they tried to do that to you, Mom, simply state, I am not communicating with you until my significant other is here or until somebody else is here.
I did that, and she kept coming back and actually asking for everyone to leave the room so that way she could just talk to me by myself.
And you state no?
Yep, I did.
Stand your ground. And you continue to stand your ground, and that is what you need to do. And I would look and I would say, let's have a child family capacity assessment conducted by a clinical psychologist.
No,
but
I
what
know.
you need to do.
It sounds great until they do absolutely everything illegally. It sounds great.
My
it does,
family spent over $200,000.
Well, see, that's exactly what it's all about.
And that is exactly what it is about. But
Money
you
for the
have
children.
to stop them, and you have to be 2, 3, 5, 10 steps ahead of them. Every single moment of the hour. You have to be thinking about what your next step is going to be while you're sleeping. You have to do all of these things. And I know.
Which is why we've taken parenting courses. She's gotten her counseling. She's got shining reviews.
But who are the counselors through? Are the counselors through Métis Child and Family Services?
No.
Because the majority of them are linked to child welfare in some form. You have to look outside the box, and you have to get your own. You have to go seek out your own.
Okay, you guys, we have to go to another break. Tiffany, you cued me you've spent $200,000 on fighting to get your son back. You were on InFocus here last season.
Correct.
You and your husband. We thank you. So that is such incredibly valuable advice for these parents to have from you. And we can connect you guys after the show. Thank you so much for calling. We have to take a break. We are nowhere near done with this story. Stick around. We've got more to come. Welcome back. The story of a couple battling child welfare in Brandon, Manitoba might be news to all of us here today, but it was actually raised in the House of Commons about a year ago. Let's take a look.
When I first gave my maiden speech in the House of Commons 3 years ago, it was about child welfare. It was about the 11,000 kids in care in the province of Manitoba. And since that time, I've had the opportunity in my riding, one of the poorest ridings in the country, of speaking with mothers and fathers who have had their children taken, such as who drove all the way from Brandon, Manitoba to come see me in Winnipeg to advocate somehow to get her child back, her little girl.
That's Winnipeg Centre Liberal MP Robert Falcon-Ouellette. He says this couple is a big part of why he pushed for Bill C-92 in the House of Commons.
Someone who had a former partner who was abusive, and it led to the seizure of some of the children after she had left the abusive relationship. And instead of denying the abusive partner, the parental rights, they in fact denied the mother in this case, who was fleeing an abusive relationship, and accused her in essence that because she did not leave the abusive relationship, she was a bad parent.
Bill C-92 comes into effect in January. It hands over jurisdiction of children in care to Indigenous people. It recognizes Indigenous law as paramount over federal and provincial laws.
We know from the stats that over 96-97% of all the children that are taken not because of allegations of abuse, that's around 13%, but it's really issues surrounding poverty.
While Ouellette is critical of the current system that's netted a disproportionate number of Indigenous children into care and has destroyed many families, he feels for those on the other side of this high-pressure system.
And some of the problems we find in the laws with the bureaucrats is people are afraid. They're afraid to make a mistake, because if a mistake is made, if we hand back a child or give a child back to a parent and that child happens to die or be more abused, then it ends up in the media and the bureaucracy gets accused of being incompetent. The ministers of the provincial agencies in charge at the provincial level are then accused of being incompetent. There's calls for resignations. We have inquiries about why children are dying in care, and so people are extremely wary of making a mistake.
So I want to get back to Mom and Dad, who Robert Falcon-Ouellette was talking about there. But first, we've got another caller. We've had some incredible callers this show. Paul from Winnipeg, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Paul, did you have a question or a comment?
I've got a number of comments.
We want to hear them.
The agency involved, the Aboriginal agency, had no business in the world. I've been watching your program here for 45 minutes. I'm teared up. I was a policeman in Winnipeg, and I saw this happen because I worked that area for 21 out of 26 years, where the majority of the Aboriginal people lived, because it was affordable. I would see these gangbuster CFS workers at that time, Child Family Services, who all were Caucasian. They were going to save the world by apprehending these children. Now, how was that possible? Like, that young fella there whose son was taken away, that is unheard of. We're in the year 2019, soon to be 20, and this is going on. This reminds me of the old programs on your station where all the children were placed in the schools and abused by white priests, white Catholic priests, by nuns.
I mean, these CFS agencies quite often use police as their muscle to go in and get these people's kids. You know, I'm curious, as a former police officer yourself, what were police doing in this? Like, were they thinking, what we're doing is right, or what's your involvement in this?
We were called just in case, because as usually someone would call and say, well, the old man's drunk. Could you come and be there in case he acts up when we take the children?
I mean, I guess that's different. I can see where there's kids being taken if there's, a drunk, violent dad and a child is literally at risk. That's not the case in so many of the stories that we cover.
This young man, he is confident, he's caring, he's loving.
Like I said, I met this couple, my producer Beverly and I left, and she said, I've got a 9-year-old. She says, would you trust these kids with your kid? And I said, 100% I would. 100% I would.
Like, I'm teared up, and I can hardly talk.
Well, I know that feeling a lot. I know.
And I'm a white guy. And I'm not racist against the Aboriginal people. You treat them like they treat you.
Thank you so much for calling, Paul.
They treat you with respect.
So, Mom and Dad, I want to get into some of the latest developments in your case. You're still fighting tooth and nail to get your kid back. You've got a new lawyer. How's that working out? It's a legal aid lawyer, let's qualify. So
yeah,
we've heard she's vicious, so we're hoping.
Yeah, we're hoping. She wants us to try and work with CFS, but my concern is we've tried before, and also I worked with them in regards to my daughter, and my daughter's still not home. And when even I have asked very politely anything about why are we here, they have rolled their eyes, they have laughed, and the workers have walked away, including the supervisor himself. So I don't know what more we can do when we've tried everything we can to work with them, and they have just shut us off basically at every chance they get.
I think that from going through the emails, they're saying that they really want to work with you, but they will only work in the confines of this kind of dance that they have concocted, and you have to go along with it. And we heard from Tiffany, who called in the last block. She said, you know what, you've got to plug your nose and do it. And it's I think everybody who's watching this agrees this is stupid. Nobody should have to plug their nose into it.
I don't understand.
But you might have to.
I don't understand how I can. Like, when you're innocent, you haven't done anything, you're not accused of anything, but I'm supposed to make
act like you're guilty of something.
I don't even understand how I'm supposed to defend myself in a matter that has nothing to do with me. How am I supposed to get my kid back? I don't know.
And how are you supposed to not? I think it was interesting too what Tiffany said about them purposefully trying to get you to lose your cool. We had another a former caseworker on the show last year. She had said the same thing. This is a former caseworker saying this is one of the tricks we use is to get you so pissed that you lash out, and then we use your lashing out as evidence that you shouldn't be near your kid. I mean, these people are chronic, raging gaslighters if I've ever seen it. Mom, one of your former teachers is actually trying to help you guys out. She's been so moved by what's happened to you and your family that she set up a GoFundMe under the title Give Me Back My Children. That's Tanis Ortinsky set that up. So if our viewers want to check that out, you can go to the GoFundMe page and search Give Me Back My Children. What other sort of support have you guys found through all of this?
Well, they definitely don't offer any support whatsoever. There's no funding that actually goes to their organization. All this funding goes to paying their court costs, to paying all these high-paid people, lawyers, judges, psychologists, child care workers. They're all getting paid a pretty penny. Well, where's that money coming from? Where?
Well, it comes from the government, and in Manitoba in particular, the system is set up that it incentivizes apprehension. These agencies all get paid based
over
on
$500,000 a child, and if they're disabled, it goes up. If they're Aboriginal, it goes up.
Yeah. So, but the province of Manitoba knows that this is wrong. They themselves had ordered a review of this system. They've been sitting on a review for 18 months. Included in the recommendations made in that review, it said stop with the birth apprehensions and stop incentivizing apprehension.
But whose paychecks does it affect? It affects the lawyers, the psychologists, the judges. That's whose paycheck it affects.
Everyone's.
Okay, what's your next plan of attack? What do you guys have to have a strategy? What's next? What are you going to do?
Well, I'm definitely trying to secure a lawyer. I'm trying my damnedest, but as an artist of sorts, a tattoo artist, right? I don't
qualify for legal aid.
Yeah, well, until I can prove my income next year, tax time, obviously, right? So,
yeah.
Which is great, that's fine, but that's next year, and
your kid will be a year old by then. I wanted to show everybody here. So, Dad, you drew this of your baby. You said you were an artist. As we can see, it's
local artist here. So, just.
And this has to give you some inspiration, and this is what keeps you guys going.
It does.
Two, we saw earlier in the show that you guys had, every month you guys go and buy the next size of diapers, hoping that this will be the month that he comes home. You buy the next size of onesies, hoping this will be the time he comes home. You've got 6 months now.
Yeah.
Are you hoping that this is the month, or will you be happy even if you can visit him again this month? Let's start with that. And we got to be quick. We're almost out of time here.
Well, under what circumstances is that visit going to take place, though? Does that mean I have to shut up and not say anything, quit asking questions, and be forced into supervised visitation even though I haven't done anything?
Yeah.
Be forced into counseling, be forced in... At some point in time here, I'm going to be on the other side of a jail cell with somebody else's name on it, is what it seems like. So I'd like an explanation.
Well, we will try to get you one. We thank you guys so much for sharing this.
I don't know what else to do.
Well, that's about all the time that we have for today's show. Putting questionable child welfare actions into focus yet again. I guess we're just going to keep doing this until somebody pays attention. Thanks to the two parents, you both, for sharing your harrowing story. It's awful that you're going through it, and it's even tougher to share it on live TV. Fighting the system to get your infant back. Thanks so much to producer Beverly Andrews. She's crazy amazing and getting the show to air every week. So is our amazing studio crew who make it happen every week. Thank you to you, our viewers. We love you on Facebook Live. We love you on the TV, old-fashioned style. This episode will be available for download as a podcast on our website at aptnnews.ca/podcast. If you missed any of the other shows, I would encourage you to go back over last season and catch up on what you've missed. You can do that at aptnnews.ca. That same website is where you might want to be checking up on this incredible in-depth investigative piece by Ken Jackson. It's called Death as Expected. It looks into just the twisted ways that the CFS agencies are working in northern Ontario. That's Death as Expected. You can find it on aptnnews.ca by Kenneth Jackson of APTN. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great afternoon, and we're going to see you back here next week.